We actually have a surprise guest right now. We were scheduled to have Terry talk to us about GRC, and unfortunately, Terry can't make it right now. So we've got someone that I met last month in South Dakota. Her name is Cristina Pawlica, and she is known as the librarian, I suppose. But I'll say that she's brilliant. Made a very big first impression on me. So as much as we're going to miss Terry, I'm very excited to see this sort of impromptu presentation. I'll give it to you.
Thank you. It's easy to make a good impression when you're at a really nice restaurant with free drinks. I'm Cristina. I know that you weren't expecting to see me, so I appreciate in advance for your grace and patience. My job day to day is talking about SEO, which is search engine optimization, as well as other digital marketing techniques. I know that there's been courses associated with Simply Cyber that have helped people with content creation or becoming cyber content creators. A lot of that in this situation looks like YouTube, but there's a lot of other platforms or methods that you can become a thought leader in the cyberspace, etc. So I'm going to talk a little bit more on the blogging side, where potentially you're writing articles versus YouTube content, or possibly on your own website, you can have content that Google can scrape and then help you be found when people are looking for content like yours. I know a lot of you are probably started your searches of which certifications should I have to break into cyber, how should my resume be updated, etc. And a lot of the advice has been create content so people can know what you're doing and what you're working on. And these are some of the tips that might help you be found when other people are looking for what you're looking for. So I brought up a couple searches. This isn't necessarily going to be for cyber per se, but I'm just going to look for where my stuff is. Okay, Google Trends. So one thing when we are doing searches, I work for a company that serves K through 12 schools primarily, so I'm going to use those as an example. Google is constantly changing. They're constantly tweaking their algorithm and running experiments so they can test out what searchers are more likely to engage with. So that being said, when I do a quick search, I might get something, or it might look one way right now, and then in a minute it might look another way, again, because they're testing those different features. What's important is when you do write those blogs, what are the best certifications to work in a SOC? What are the best certifications to become a CISO, etc.? What you want to do is make sure that you are matching your content for keywords that people are typing in. So you can start to think of, when you were just getting started, what were the type of phrases or questions that you were typing in to really help? And then you want to match those keywords. So in this situation, why boarding schools, etc. If I'm a parent or even a student that is considering something, and in this case, in this example, it's boarding schools, I'm going to type in why boarding schools. Why should I go here for besides all my other options that I have? So at the top, we see an article by a boarding school named Hotchkiss. And right underneath, it gives you right away, hey, here are 7 benefits of a boarding school. And it's scraping this piece of content for different keywords. So when I click on this, I can see in the content that there's challenging academics, peer learning, smaller class sizes, personal growth, etc. And that was being put on the very top as the answers to that question. So if you're going to reframe this into putting content out of which certification should I start with, come up with those 5 ways, those 4 ways, 10 things to consider when you're looking for a career in XYZ. Those are going to be your keywords, and you want to put them as titles so that folks can skim the article. And also, I just think it's better for engagement because people are more likely to click on something where they know they can skim versus a whole essay, like a National Geographic article. But also, the benefit is that Google is going to scrape those titles and put them here as the answer. And like I said, Google's constantly changing. So if I go to people also ask, what is the point of a boarding school? Clearly that's something somebody typed in. There's an answer that it scraped again from that article. If I type it slightly in a different way, benefits of a boarding school, we now have AI overview that's coming up on the top of Google. And again, it's really just scraping that content that you're writing in those blogs and those thought leadership pieces. And then it's giving credit back to your website or wherever you're publishing this information. So I can click here, what are the benefits of a boarding school from Marine Military Academy? So why this is important is because everyone has started out in the same place you have when you first broke into cyber, etc. So take stock of what those questions were that you had in the beginning. And then ask yourself, okay, well, how would I answer this now if I was talking to past me who was first breaking in? And those will be your titles. And those are called H1 headers, by the way, if you're working on the back end of a website. And Google has that in their algorithm to indicate that that's one of the most important parts of that article. So that's why they're scraping it and putting it into answers like these. With AI coming on, with generative AI to Google, the thing that Google craves more than anything else now is thought leadership, expertise, genuine thought, like original thoughts, and that's all you to come up with that. So if you have, maybe say, you know, I've been through this experience, I want to share it, I want to tell people how I broke into the industry and make it easier for somebody else to come along behind me. But I'm not the greatest writer, and I failed English and had to retake it again. Well, don't be afraid of AI. I know there's a lot of fear around it. Again, you use it as your intern, and I think I heard somebody else say this previously. You use it as your intern to do that tedious task of create the first draft. But what you're doing still when you're typing this in and creating this content is you're giving AI your expertise, and you're saying, hey, ChatGPT, write me an article that's 1,000 words long that has these keywords in it, which have come from all of your searches in the past, as we saw Jerry's when I was setting up. And also, these are the answers I want you to include. I want to first take the Sec Plus, or the ways to break into cyber is take the Sec Plus, figure out what you want to do, talk to experts that are in that space, start creating content. Those are your 4 things to consider when you're coming up with a blog article to help be found. So you're feeding your expertise into AI, it's just creating a draft, and then you're still taking responsibility of it and saying, this is what I wish I knew, here, Google space, take it over. Now, that's the human piece of it, even though you are using technology to bring it up. But I would say when you're talking about the Google algorithm, there's a lot of what I call black hat SEOs out there where they're trying to keyword stuff. But for example, if you're a off-brand shoe company and you're trying to be found on Google, some of the black hat SEO tactics that they would do is on the back end of their website, just stuff a whole bunch of keywords back there like Nike, Adidas, all these things that are likely going to get hits on the internet. But that's not exactly what you are. Now Google's algorithm, although that used to trick it in the past, has become sophisticated enough where it can detect that's happening. It's called keyword stuffing, and actively suppress your website. So you really want keywords that actually have to do with your content, and where you can find that is several different places. Google Trends is nice. So if you just Google Trends, which is what I do on a day-to-day basis, and then you go to Explore, you can type in different words like, what are people using? Sec Plus, for example, I can type in here, and then I can compare it to, okay, maybe they're being proper and saying Security Plus as far as a certificate goes. And I'll just type that in, and you can get a comparison of, okay, what are people actually using? So this one isn't surprising to us, right? Because we talk about this all day long. But in the United States, over the past 12 months, and we can even zoom this out, there's Sec Plus is widely used and Security Plus is never used. So if you're coming up with content and you want this to be applicable to Google, I know this is an obvious example, but now you know to use Sec Plus more often as a keyword, because that's going to match the language people are using. Now, if we're going back to the school examples, like boarding schools, one that I use all the time is private schools notoriously call themselves independent schools, and they're adamant about that's what they should be calling themselves on the internet. And then I go to Google Trends and I actually type in, okay, let's type in independent schools. Okay, now let's type in private schools. And just like this, private schools is going to be way higher than any type of language independent schools. And I think we can find this in our circles as well, where there's a lot of internal jargon that we use that only we would know. But if you're first breaking in, you might use something completely different. Now on the fly, I can't come up with an example, so you're stuck with private schools versus independent schools. But this helps you start to put what you know as an insider or somebody who's already broken in or who has become an expert, translate what you know into that person on the outside that's just trying to make their way in. And that's how you match up your content with those folks, but that's also how you truly help them, is you speak their language. So there's other tools. This is one of them, and this is great for a side-by-side comparison. But then there's also SEMrush, Screaming Frog, other things where you can type in, hey, I want to be known for cybersecurity certifications. What keywords should I have to incorporate then into my content to help it better match to these inquiries that I'm typing in? For those that are about mid-level, I typed in here top 10 on-page SEO tactics. Now, on-page SEO means things that you can do on the back end of your website or with the content that's on your website itself that can help make your content more favorable to the Google algorithm. So that's going to be, one, just putting content on your page, period, including keywords. If you have any visuals on your website, making sure there's alternative text behind them or captions that can then help Google understand what's in the photo. But also just another point, as far as being very inclusive in an inclusive community, this helps with alternative text stands or is for people who are either temporarily or permanently visually impaired, who are using a screen reader to read the content on the website. So what it does is it's basically like a caption, but it's hidden from the other, where people are seeing the website. It's behind the photo. And there's opportunities to put keywords in that, but really what it's for is to just read what's in the photo so people who are using a screen reader can understand what's being presented in those images. And one, Google favors accessible websites. And then two, it's an opportunity for you to put some keywords in there and just help better be found for some of the content you're doing. Again, without keyword stuffing and trying to cheat the system. Page speed. I'm not really going to get into that because a lot of that has to do with your CMS. Just make sure you're optimizing your photos so that it doesn't take forever to load a website. But that does come into helping your content be found. I'm going to skip the schema markup. I think that's class 200, and this is 101. Internal links and URLs and title tags are also going to help. So if I were to go to this piece of content I started with, why boarding schools? Some of the best practices we're going to use are, one, I already touched on the title. Humans just tend to love things that have a number in it so they know how much they have to skim. 7 Benefits of Boarding School is performing very well, by the way. And then you have your H1 and H2 headers. This is something you can format in the background for all of those who are starting your content creation journey. And then you have small blurbs that really answer the question, and then some internal linking. So this is a big factor to employ. When you have a piece of content, you want an internal link to link back to another piece of content. So, hey, challenging academics is something that goes into why boarding school, a benefit of a boarding school. By the way, here's an internal link to my academics page. You can do this with your website too of, hey, start to get immersed in the cyber community by reading books. By the way, here's an internal link to my book list. You can go check it out. Or you want to figure out how to visualize the labs, or on your resume show what labs or activities you've been doing in the background. Hey, here's a link to my lab list or GitHub or whatever you want it to be. And then you also have outbound links where you're sharing other credible websites. So it might be, this is the website you go to sign up for your Sec Plus, here's where to get vouchers, here's where to get discounted vouchers, etc. So you want to make sure that you're not just writing an essay and then that's all there is once they get to the bottom. You want to constantly make it so that someone has somewhere else to go, especially if you're pointing them back to your own website in another way. Let me go back to the 10 on-page SEO. So title tags, I would say if you do have a website where in the back end there's some SEO settings in the tab on there, what title tags do is essentially summarizes or describes the page. You can include keywords in there. Google's just naturally going to scrape something on the page that it thinks is going to be the best use for its searchers, or that something that's valuable for searchers. But you also generally have the opportunity in most websites to go and type in a summary for that page too, so you can make it better than what you think Google's currently doing. Now, everything we do on the back end of our website is an influence campaign with Google. It's not that you have full control. So if you put something in there that's very fluffy or marketing or doesn't match the content at all of that page, Google's going to say, no, I'll handle this. Let me scrape something and put it there. And what I mean by that is when I'm typing in benefits of a boarding school and I go down here, this is a title tag and this is a meta description. So just to visualize it, this is the page name, if you will, and then something that describes it. And there's usually a place in the website to help manipulate what shows up here. By the way, here's another feature of how this content could show up. Benefits of a boarding school, bam, bam, bam. These are the ways that, or this is giving credit back to those websites, and this could be you for cybersecurity content. So the reason this is important, creating content like this, even I would argue, even if you do create content on YouTube, etc., I always think it's valuable to have a website as well that people can go to, and then you can recreate those videos into an article format so that it can be scraped and presented. But what happens and how you increase your SEO or your ranking or the likeliness that you're going to be found in features like this and higher up on the page is each time somebody clicks on this, so I go here and I'm like, oh, that's very interesting. I'm going to click on this link and be brought back to your content on your website. Google's taking note that you did something, you're providing value to its searcher. And my metaphor is gives you a little Google coin into your Google bank account. And then the next time somebody comes to search for something similar, Google says, well, this helped this searcher last time. Let me show it a little bit higher this time and see if they find value. They click on it, they find value. You get another little Google coin. And over time, and it really does take maybe years for traction, you're getting higher and higher on those page rankings. So next time somebody does search in, you know, what certification should I get if I'm trying to break into the cyber career field, they'll put yours at the top. So think of it not as your day-to-day banking account where you're constantly looking at the analytics over and over again. You're like, this hasn't moved. I don't know. The needle's not moving. There's no traction here. Why am I even doing this? It takes usually 2 to 3 years for it to really skyrocket. So think of it as your investment accounts, not your day-to-day. So Google's whole point of existing is to bring value to its searchers, which is why it's getting better at knocking off like black hat SEO, like keyword stuffing, because if they're going to present a website that has nothing to do with what they searched for, Google's going to lose to Bing, right? Like another search engine who can do it better is going to take over. So it's the same fundamentals over and over, where it might not be title tags and meta descriptions per se, who knows in the future, but it's still going to be that valuable content. And in most cases with SEO, we call this evergreen content in the industry, meaning it's going to be important now, it's going to be important later. So you have news websites that are like Kendrick Lamar and Drake beef, and that's like high on the list for a news article, but no one's really going to care about that in 5 years. We'll see, but probably not. People are always going to care about what's going to help me break into the cyber industry. How can I get a higher paying job to support my family? Things like that is great starts for content. because they'll always be important.
What would you consider to be easy wins for SEO if you were trying to optimize your page?
Write good content.
Write the content?
And by the way, if you ask Google and they don't tell you anything of how to increase SEO, they're going to say, write content that's 10 times better than your competitor. And you say, thanks, Google.
Yeah.
I'll go and do that now. I would say write valuable content, figure out what people are craving that doesn't exist. Now, sometimes you'll Google something and you get like, results. And at the bottom, there's that square that says, hey, did this not meet what you were looking for? Tell me what you're looking for, and Google will log it. There used to be a place in, I don't know, Google for content creators or something like that, where you can see all of those entries that people didn't have answers to or weren't satisfied by, and then you can go and create content by that. Google took that away. So what I would say, there's a couple different hacks. One, Google Trends, see what people are searching, because the other part of it is, if you go to the home page, sorry, I'm used to a Mac, so I keep getting that side menu. Unfortunately, we'll scroll down for something. I don't know. So it's a weird news cycle lately. I don't know. There might be something going on. But you can see what people are actually searching by search volume. So instead of comparing two different keywords, you can say, what are people actually searching for right now? A lot of it will be more of that newsy content versus evergreen, but that's a place. And then I was like doxing Jerry before, because when I went to go type in something here, it showed all of his search history. But if you start typing in a question like how to break into the cybersecurity realm, you see all of these other searches that are on the menu right here. Those are also questions that people started to type in, so you can get an idea of what people want to see as far as content goes.
Are there any other specific strategies around trying to rank higher in the local area as opposed to the whole internet?
Yeah, we actually have an expert in this community. I don't see him in here, but Chris Young says that he works a lot with local search and being found, like tree trimming companies, etc. Can you give me a better example of why you're trying to be found locally?
So say you have a service-based business that requires you to be on site to do something, and then some other businesses might be looking for somebody in their area to come in and do some work. So they're not really searching for somebody in Connecticut if they're in Augusta, Georgia.
Gotcha. I would look at the your Google Business Panel, and if you don't have one, create one. I don't know. I'm trying to. What's a local place here? Anyone from the area? Like a local. Yes, you.
Yeah.
Tell me, like a bar or restaurant.
Frothy beard.
What is it?
Frothy beard.
Beer.
Beard, as in facial hair.
I don't know which.
Yeah.
I know which one's better for me, but so right here for frothy beard, they had their Google Business Panel right here. So remember how I said, top 10 on-page SEO, and that's everything you could do on the back end of your website. This is off-page SEO, meaning things you can do for SEO that doesn't have to do with your website necessarily. So if you go down on this, you can say own this business. There might be, if somebody typed in your business before, there might be a Google Business Panel that already exists that's generally tied to your address. You can click own this business, and then if somebody already owns it, there's a problem, but there are ways that you can recover it. So that's one. I would make sure that you have keywords in the background. They have to match what you are, but in the private school and independent school, if there's two keywords that people typically type in, you can put both of those as a description in the back end of your Google Business Panel. I would optimize the photos that are here, because if and this is a good school example, but sometimes they would put their campus there, which is nice. Maybe you have a nice campus, but if you have smiling students in that photo instead, that's more likely to make a face-to-face connection, an emotional connection, which is generally how you sell things. We can all justify why we went with a certain thing that we bought, but generally it's establishing trust, making sure that you have some kind of connection for that thing. So if you have a small business and you want to show off your small business, show your employees interacting with a client. And if they're happy with that being on there, that's how you establish trust. Reviews are important. By By the way, if you are less than 4 stars, you're not going to be shown as best brewery in Charleston. That delineator is, if you're under 4 stars, you're not going to be found. If you're over, you will be. Sometimes there's some updates in here where you can just say, you know, have a post each month and say, hey, for a tree trimming service, for example, when's the best time to get my trees trimmed? How do I prepare for winter? Again, these evergreen pieces of content and questions that people are asking, you can reuse and put in your Google Business Panel as a Google Business Panel update. I think I'm well over 7 minutes, but if anyone else has other questions, I'd be happy to answer. Just one last tip that I think is funny is if you've noticed that Reddit is coming in higher and higher into your searches, that's not a coincidence. Google has a partnership with them now where they can index Reddit and show it up higher on searches. And that goes into with what they're craving more and more is experience. So it used to be how they'd qualify a website would be expertise, authority, and trustworthiness, and people went through websites and graded it based on this scale. They added another E, experience, meaning they actually want you to write something that you know about. If you are writing about a burger place, they want you to have been there and actually tried that burger, not just recycling somebody else's content. So I think that's a good place to end this with, in that quality over quantity, and be human, be authentic, because in the end, that's what's going to win out.